Hey guys, it's me Jake from JakeMan21642, and today I wanted to do a just quick fleet update. Some of you may recognize this car, some of you may not be familiar with it, but this is, I guess, the return video of my 1990 Volvo 240DL. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I bought this car in 2016, actually during my freshman year of auto tech school, and owned it until about late 2020. Actually sold it to a friend of mine who kind of always told me if I wanted to get rid of it to let him know first, and then he actually was in a situation where he needed a second car. I was in the middle of moving, working, I had a lot of stuff going on, so hate to say lost interest, but it kind of lost interest in it and sold it to him. But also, if that never happened, I wouldn't have the Subaru and possibly even the Mercedes as well. But this car is now back in my hands. He took excellent care of it for the couple of years that he had it. And kind of same thing, I always told him if he wanted to sell it, let me know first. He's got some other projects right now, so let me know that he was kind of looking to get rid of it. And honestly, I've been missing this car lately, so last week I finally brought it home, and I have to say, this is the only car I have driven for the last week. I'm so happy to have it back, and really just have missed driving it, especially with gas prices right now too, which is kind of my excuse to bring it back. So this will be kind of a weird update video. If you want to go search back through my channels, there's videos from way back when I originally got it, but I'll kind of go everything I did and he did, and I've done a few things so far already in the week I've had it just to make it kind of a better daily driver, but I'll just show the basics. Like I said, just get a reintroduction video of this car to the channel. This was definitely one of the most popular cars I've had on the channel, so I'll try to do plenty of content with it. But outside, I guess first thing is, it really through my phone camera actually looks kind of decent right now, but the paint on this car is officially shot at this point. And anyone who remembers it from before, it wasn't in the greatest shape to begin with, but over the last few years, it definitely hasn't gotten any better. The roof's actually faded to the point where it's almost even. It's just flat looking. But like I said, for those that remembered, it was rough when I got it. It's definitely your typical old lady car that was parked outside. So the clear coat just kind of has this shattered glass look to it when you get up close. And despite buffing and polishing and trying every product out there, it just kind of never went away. Over the last few years, though, you can see it really has started to go on the hood. We're also in the middle of pollen season, so I haven't done a proper detail yet. I just kind of hosed all the pollen off before I left for this video, because this car isn't going to look anything like this by the morning. But at one point, I did have the roof plasti-dipped. You can see some of the remainder of that because it was completely faded when I got it. The plasti-dip really did not age well, just like plasti-dip typically does. So that all ended up getting peeled off. And like I said, the roof actually has gotten to a point where it's just even. It actually really doesn't bother me. One thing that my friend who had the car did add were these roof rails, which I love. I'll probably never use them, but he actually did. They use this car kind of as their kayak car. But I just love the way they look on the car. And they're very nice Soule racks. So, I mean, Swedish, they kind of fit on the Swedish car. And like I said, I just love the way they look. Otherwise, outside, you can see pinstripe, which for how old it is has actually held up well. I usually hate pinstripes, but it totally matches the old man style of this car. Mirrors, he actually repainted them while he had it, and they definitely look a lot better. This trim, I also did plasti dip at one point, and this section's actually held up. Well, still exists, but you can see it peeled off on the rest of this. They sell these trim pieces, as well as all these gaskets and stuff, which it needs now. But I don't know if it's even worth doing right now, because I think eventually this thing is going to get a full paint job. It's worth it at this point. I love all the stickers I put on it when I was like 19 are still on here. The taillights, actually right before I got rid of it, that was one of the last things I did. See all the original badges and things still there. Of course, your old school trunk pop. We'll get to all that in a second. But once again, too, I mean, the paint's, it's toast on the trunk lid now, too, which this started. So what really happened with this car is between YouTube and my actual job at the time, I was basically working full-time, and I was also a full-time student, so I never got to really do anything with this car. I just drove it, and it just kind of always worked, so I never really did anything outside of like routine maintenance and stuff like that. But I ended up in the middle of moving and working, and I had other projects going on and just got busy. I kind of left this thing sitting at my parents' house. So this started when it was under their carport. And I mean, the friend that owned it lived on a dirt road. So it's golden hour right now. So I'm curious to see on my computer, but through my phone, it actually looks good. This is definitely the better side. For now though, this is just kind of my back and forth to work car. I mean, in the last week, I definitely have not been easy on this thing, and I've spent about $28 in gas. Versus on the Mercedes or the Subaru, that easily would have been 70 or 80. The way this car originally was, this is just my around town daily beater. I know in the Mercedes video, I said I drive it way too much, so this is kind of my solution for that. And I mean, it was nice. Beautiful day here. So I took the Mercedes out to brunch with my family earlier. It was nice. I'm not in that car all the time anymore, so it's fun. It definitely feels like a little bit more of an event. And I mean, this thing, despite the way it may look, this is my favorite car I've ever driven. I've never been this comfortable in anything I've owned, and I'm looking forward now because I actually have the time and money to do some of the stuff I wanted to do with this car when I originally had it. See, they really do need to like actually be scrubbed, but like I said, it's pollen season. I'm gonna wait to do a full detail on the car. But I did add these. I was actually out of town visiting a friend, found these on Marketplace, and we drove all the way to Maryland in his Fiesta ST to get them. They fit perfectly, and then I ended up bringing them all the way back down in the back of my 03 Accord. That's how long this car has been around. But added these wheels. They came on a super old set of Michelins. So at the time, I had a Costco membership, and I got a great deal on the set of Michelin Pilot AS3s. So added these tires. They are hilarious. These were the same tires I had on my S60 as well, and they still grip fantastic, even though these are kind of an older set. It's hilarious in this car with the amount of body roll it has, but how glued to the road it is with these tires. They're also fantastic in the snow as well. Up front, you can see I did do some black trim restore on the bumper. That always helps with the way this car looks. And then I bought these while I had it, but I never had a chance to put them on. So got a brand new set of depot headlights, which definitely help with the way it looks. And then the grille, it's funny, I have had this all this time, but replaced the badge up front. I found this in a drawer a couple weeks ago, so held on to that. I knew the car was coming back soon and slapped that on. These always fade and peel, so this is actually a nice aftermarket sticker. And then these corner lamps, I think each one of them has been replaced at least twice while I've had it. This thing, which was part of the reason it ended up at my parents' house, was it kept getting hit at my old apartment building. And it wouldn't do anything other than just bust whatever light on the corner they hit. So, yeah, each of those has been replaced multiple times. I was doing junkyard ones. I think I actually got a set of nice ones, and that's when I wanted to park it at a better spot. Thankfully, I've got my house and a driveway, so this thing is safe now. You can see, for as ratty as the exterior looks, the interior of this car has still held up fantastic, which this was the reason I originally bought it, is it has always looked good. But yeah, and this thing is in daily driver mode right now too. I did not really prepare it for this video at all. Not that it was in bad shape when I got it. Like I said, my friend took fantastic care of it, but I really scrubbed everything down last weekend just to really kind of officially make it feel like mine. Go ahead and get in, and I'll talk about the few little things I've done so far. You can see amazingly, and I need to get some copies made, this car does still have the original keys and all of that, as well as, of course, I've got the old school keychain for it as well. So go ahead and start it. And you can hear it just fires up and sounds exactly the same as it always has. So inside, like I said, I did kind of just a basic detail on it last weekend. Everything is basically the same. Glued this piece of trim back together. Of course, a week of me daily driving it, getting in and out of the car, it is already disintegrating. So I actually found a black one for that side, and I kind of like the way it looks. So he's going to try to 3D print another one, but if that doesn't work, I'm just going to look for a black one at the junkyard. I really kind of like the contrast, and this just drives me crazy. Window switches, he did fix that. They were a little janky when I had the car, but he replaced pretty much all of the ball bearings in this switch panel, so they all work from the master control. That one finally works. It didn't work before. It still has a little trouble going up from that switch, and both of the back ones work perfect now. Some other things, these always break. I'm sure 240 people know that. So he replaced them. He actually 3D printed these as well, which is very cool. Visors, which I replaced. These are both from junkyard cars back when I had it. These pockets always rip, and I managed to find two that were unused. Another thing I love, just the old school vinyl headliner. I've owned a bunch of 90s Hondas that also had the same thing, but I love this. Just all the old school car things. I mean, I love my Mercedes. I love all the cool stuff I get to work around every day, but something about just getting in a car like this that is so analog. I mean, I'm just so happy in this. I feel so at home. I always grew up with old cars. Even before I could drive, my family always had old stuff like this. So I just love it. And like I said, I can finally kind of park the Mercedes, really keep that nice, because that's a great car I want to keep for a long time. And just use this for around town, back to work and stuff like that. Especially now, these have really appreciated since I had it. And this thing gets even more attention than it did before. Otherwise, inside though, cruise control in this switch. You do have your light controls up here, as well as your fog light. In the middle, the speedometer still works, and of course everything else, temp gauge, fuel gauge, those still work, clock even. But the odometer is broken again. It's stuck at 39,099. I've got the repair kit on order, but I'm not too concerned about it. This car, like every 240, was already TMU anyway. It's really got around 170,000 miles. This cluster, I think it was replaced around like 120 or 130. So again, that's nothing for a 240, and this is so common in all of them. I'm not worried about it. Again, this just at the moment as a driver, it's my back and forth to work car. And see, parking brake lights on at the moment because the parking brake's on. And then it needs a new bulb failure relay. Every single bulb on the car works, but that light is still on. I think I've already replaced the bulb failure relay in this thing at least twice. So when I have the cluster apart, I'm probably just going to yank that bulb out of there. And then the upshift light, because my friend did the IPD overdrive bypass. So the overdrive solenoid's out. That's a common problem on these. He just replaced it with the bypass plate. So the car will just always automatically go into overdrive, which is fine. That's what I want anyway. But that light's also on, so I'm probably going to yank that bulb. Once again, just for my OCD, not having to look at those. And thankfully, when you don't have the lights on, that typically stays off. In the middle, this is one upgrade I just did just to kind of make the car a little more livable for back and forth to work. I finally took the factory cassette player out. It never worked that great. It finally just kind of completely stopped working. You get little intervals out of it, and then you'd hit a bump and all sound would just go away. But I got this Sony radio on eBay. This was like $60, and it was already wired for a 240. Took 5 minutes to pop in, and I mean, for what it is, it's not bad for what it is. These are the original speakers, and probably going to replace them soon. That's one of the few things I might actually take this to a shop for, because these are riveted in there. These door panels are super fragile and annoying to get off. And you kind of have to do the right speakers in these, because they're like my Beetle, where it will rip these door panels apart if you put ones that are too big or too heavy in there. I'd also like to actually retain these factory speakers, even though this one's kind of rubbed off. That one actually still has the writing on it. I believe these were the upgraded speakers from the factory anyway. But this does have auxiliary in, does have a CD player as well, which is nice. Doesn't have Bluetooth, but that's fine with me. This is old enough that it's from that era before everything was an LED light show. So this is actually nice and dark and clean looking at night. And it's so old, it's a little period correct to the car, at least to me. But you've got your auxiliary right there. Eventually, I am going to buy a little Bluetooth module for it. But for now, the fact that I just have listenable FM radio is enough for me. Air vents right here, all of your climate controls down below. This car has the most insane heat of any car I've ever owned. On the way back, it was actually kind of chilly. I picked this car up in the mountains and drove it about 2.5 hours back, and it drove fantastic the entire way. And like I said, I've taken the Mercedes out twice, but I've driven this car everywhere, every day for like the last 10 days now, and I don't know why I ever sold it. But climate controls, like I said, this thing is the most insane heat ever. It was cold coming back getting it. I was running the heat in like intervals of 5 minutes, and with the heat on, I'd always have a window cracked because it is that hot. Another thing too, and my dad pointed this out earlier today when we were in it, I love how this thing is so old. It's actually kind of designed to be driven with the windows down, because you can drive with the windows down and not be beat in the face by the wind, because you've actually got these nice rain gutters and also kind of wind deflectors at the same time. It's overall, I mean, just such a comfortable car. I need to get it tinted. My tint guy's kind of blowing me off, but this thing is fishbowl at the moment. I just love that old car visibility of this thing as well. Cigarette lighter right there, which does still work. You have your fade adjustment. You have some sound adjustment right there for the radio. Defrost, and then this doesn't really do anything, but just kind of an SRS plate. Hazards. And then your air conditioning, which this one is still running R12, so I need to get it converted. The R12 actually worked back when I had it, but it's all leaked out by now. Again, just kind of a back and forth to work car. I've owned plenty of cars with no air conditioning. I'm fine with that. I'll get to that when I get to it. Then your seatbelt light right there. Ashtray, of course, because this is a old school car. Down below, do have some storage there. And then the shifter for your 4-speed auto in the middle. This is either an Eisen or a Borg-Warner transmission. I can't remember exactly. When I bought this car, my only other 2 cars were manual, so I was actually really happy to have an automatic. And again, I still am, because it's like, you're not going anywhere fast in this car. This is totally a get in, put it in drive, and just kind of go car. So happy with the automatic. If this ever does break, which these are pretty solid for what they are, but you can get a junkyard one, no problem. These 240s are still super common. Seats in this car are some of my favorite seats of all time. They are so comfortable. I love this cloth material. They also are heated in this one. But very, very nice. They still feel exactly the same as they always did. They're springy as well, which again, just another old car thing, which you'll only get if you've owned something like this. You can literally feel the springs in the seat, which are part of the car's suspension. These are amazing. I drove the car 2.5 hours straight and no complaints at all. It's just so comfortable. In the middle, this is the biggest thing I've done to the car now that I've had it back. And it kills me because I looked for this the entire time I owned it. If I had this, I probably wouldn't have sold the car to begin with. But I finally have an armrest. And 240 people will know, people scalp these things so hard on eBay. The day I found this at the junkyard, I was looking at the exact same armrest for like $350 on eBay. I was about to buy it, and then later that day after I found this one, it was already gone. So these are worth their weight in gold. This has made this such a comfortable commuter car. It's the biggest thing I've done to it. And this one's, I mean, you got a little burn hole right there, but this one's not in terrible shape either. And it has just dramatically increased comfort in this car. Console down below, which like they all are, is cracked. I need to glue it back together. And then my friend's gonna 3D print me another one of these cups because I already shattered it setting my phone down too hard. This was also all brand new Volvo OEM parts when I bought the car. So these always crack, they always break. It's weird, for as well built as this car is, some of the interior plastics are pretty crappy. But down below, heated seat controls as well, which still work. It's very, very nice. Up top, obviously, manually dimming mirror. You can see this thing, like I said, has been the commuter for the last week. But we'll go ahead and step out. I'll show you the rest of the car really quick. Surprisingly, the car does have power locks. Just press down. Once it's locked, press again, and it will lock all of the other doors. And I mean, typical 240, you just have the gunshot door open and close sound. Manual mirrors, of course, and I bump these constantly with my knee getting in and out of the car. Backseat from this side, everything looks exactly the same. Of course, that trim piece is missing too. That side's actually held up decent. But this is not the best in the world, but again, I'm 6'2" and I'm not a small person. This seat's back all the way, which is how I drive this car. And I'm pretty comfortable back here. I mean, you've got the typical 240 freaky headrests, which are soft. You actually do get an armrest, which again is just overstuffed and plush, just like the front one. But super comfortable back seat. I love it. I've ridden back here a few times, and it's just as springy as the front is. Again, 90s car stuff. You've got the vinyl seat backs. Of course, everything on the door in the back is still padded. Power window controls as well, which I think I have the lockout on at the moment. Your rear seatbelt light, and then of course your rear ashtray, because again, this is a 90s car. It's just something about this car. I mean, I still just absolutely love the charm of this thing. Even after all this time I've lived with it, I still feel like a kid in an 80s movie, like borrowing their parents' car when I drive this thing. Like I said, I've replaced the taillights. Also, the entire exhaust system on this car has been replaced. The old lady that had it before me did pretty much everything else. And then when I got it, the downpipe was blown out, which was hilarious. This thing was so loud, but I replaced that. I actually had this thing legal and inspected for about 2 years, and then eventually just did the antique tags. I'm just going to do the antique tags again this time. Inside of the trunk, which I forgot how massive it really is on this car. Awesome amount of space. I have kind of missed having a sedan just because I've always had a sedan. But you can see everything inside is still very original. You've got a lot of the stickers, which have held up pretty okay. This light up here still works and even still actually cuts off when you lower it. Spare tire on the side. This is one of the wheels that was actually on the car when I got it. And I just kind of picked the one with the best tire and made that the spare. Of course, that's probably close to a 10-year-old tire at this point at least. But this car, I'll put some pictures in the video. It did still have the original hubcaps on it when I got it. But you see, carpeted, I do need to vacuum it out. And I also do need to get, I believe there's a plate that goes around here that'll cover all the taillights and everything. But again, replaced those right when I got it. Fuel cap on this side. I really need to get a locking one. Also need to clean that. Back seat on this side, everything follows through. And you can see as well, I mean, this car lived in Virginia its entire life. I forgot to mention that earlier. So it is completely rust-free underneath. And up front on the passenger side, see, everything follows through. Like I said, I scrubbed this seat down as well last weekend. The door pockets as well on both sides are still intact. Glove box, light still works. You do have your little 80s mirror right there. And up front, this car does have Silver Star ZXE bulbs in it, which that's about as good as you're going to get on something like this, but they do actually make a difference. Go ahead and pop the hood. And under the hood, this does have Volvo's 2.3 liter inline 4-cylinder, which since I got it, I've just kind of done the basic buying a used car stuff. Changed the oil. This thing loves 15W40 like a heavy duty truck. Also takes literally the same oil filter as a lot of heavy duty trucks, as well as tractors. You can see also did the spark plugs for the second time, which is first car I've ever owned long enough technically to do spark plug slice. Spark plugs, wire, of course distributor cap and rotor. And I'm waiting for the new ignition coil to get here. Going to replace that, but figured I'd at least get everything else on. Did get a new battery right before I bought it. Next, I'm going to do radiator hoses, thermostat, timing belt I need to take a look at, but that was done, and that really probably only has 20,000 miles on it at the most, so not too worried about that. These are non-interference engine anyway. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, you can see it's still very original and clean under the hood on here. And I love this. I was actually using this the other night, changing spark plugs in the dark. Even that still works. And that's why I love this car. Is this was the first car I definitely really worked on by myself. I taught myself a lot of stuff on it. Pretty sure this is the first car I ever changed oil, changed spark plugs on, and it's still a modern classic that you can drive every day. And I mean, it's not like my MR2 where you definitely feel like you could die at any second. This is actually a pretty substantial, safe feeling, still fun to drive car, and it's definitely not going anywhere this time. If I do get tired of it, if I do get rid of it, I'll probably just give it to my parents as a spare car, because even they love this thing. All of my family is so happy to have it back. But like I said, expect plenty of update videos. This thing was super popular when I had it before, so I'll definitely try to get some content with it, and let me know what you guys would like to see. And any questions, anything else, drop them down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and subscribe for more.